I was stuck in my room for 10 months, fully isolated. That means no friends, no socializing, not even a job. But what makes this case so unique is that I experienced many things I'd never felt before, including one of the weirdest emotions ever. In this video, I'll uncover everything from what it was like being inside all day to how I'm surviving this mess. So to begin, let me tell you how I got here. The story starts at November of 2023. I was at school at 6 p.m. I just got off a rather uncomfortable plastic chair. In front of me is a line of students, all lined up to the back of the stage. The feeling I had in that moment was sheer excitement. If you couldn't tell, I was graduating. I wanted to leave this school because I wanted to make 2024 a successful year. So I get my certificate, and when I graduate, I leave the school and enter the car. At that moment, I certainly felt a large sense of pride. A sense of pride so high that I felt euphoric. But then I realized something. And the more I thought about it, the more my euphoria turned into fear. Basically, to give context, I live in a rural town. The nearest job to me is a 15-minute drive, which sounds easy until you realize that I don't have a license. But I couldn't get one because the price of the test was so high that my parents could not afford another one. This is when I realized that because of the situation that I was in, I'd be placed in the worst scenario possible. I'd be trapped for who knows how long. Well, what if my friends reach out for me? Maybe then I won't be that socially isolated. They wouldn't reach out to me for 7 whole months. At that moment in the car, I knew what I was heading into, but the only thing I could do was accept the fact that I was going to be stuck for a long time. It's a weird situation because it kind of feels like my life isn't exactly real. Normally, at this age, if I was my great-grandfather, I'd be owning a house and already be married, but I'm 19 and all I have is my room and my computer. This lifestyle should not be normal. So now that I'm trapped, the first issue I'd run into is something I expected but did not expect at the same time. It's common knowledge that social relationships are a basic human need, but because I had no one to talk to, I couldn't fulfill this need. If you know anything about human psychology, this holds horrendous effects on us emotionally. And oh boy, did I learn this the hard way. So when I graduated, initially, I thought I didn't need that much social contacts. After all I needed was time and patience. But I couldn't be more incorrect because as months went on by, something strange started to form. Out of nowhere, I started to crave socializing. I wanted to talk to someone my age. Now, I thought the feeling wouldn't last very long, but every single day, it got bigger and bigger. So it was clear that I needed to talk to someone fast. However, one Sunday, I'd be given the opportunity. You see, every Sunday I go to church, but this time, when I entered, I noticed this lady that was around my age. I decided I wanted to talk to her, so I walked up to her, shook her hand, and greeted her by my name. The interaction itself wasn't too interesting, but when I did this, the strangest thing happened. I felt this weird feeling. It's as if my brain was reminding me how it feels like to socialize with someone, as if it's a completely new feeling. I didn't notice at the time, but what had happened here was that because I was isolated for so long, my brain started to perceive this kind of interaction as rare because of how little I socialized. You know how weird that is? But despite the mystery of that experience, I'd go on to experience something way more uncanny. Basically, when you're going on a walk, more often than not, you'll make eye contact with someone, and you'll very likely greet them with a wave, or a nod, or a smile. This is actually how in hunter-gatherer times, we identified someone as friend or foe. But because I was so isolated, when I would go to the gym after maybe a week of full isolation, when I would notice strangers, instead of feeling that sense of connection, it would feel unnatural to even look at them. It's such a weird and indescribable feeling that I genuinely have no idea how to put into words, especially when I'm usually able to feel very comfortable when making eye contact with people. So that's what isolation did to me socially. But where things get dark is when we look at what happened to me when I was stuck in my room day after day. And allow me to explain. Sometimes I was able to break the streak of staying in my room because either my brother would take me to the gym or my dad would take me to church. But sometimes they would get busy, meaning they weren't available. So as a result, I'd be stuck in my room for weeks. This lifestyle sounds incredibly unhealthy, but the thing is, it is, but it goes deeper than that. According to Pennsylvania Association of Realtors, 19.2% of young adults aged between 25 to 34 live with their parents. The worrying thing about this statistic is that when I was stuck in my room for a very long time, life started to feel different. Before, when I had places to go, I actually had something to look forward to, whether they were individual people or events. But when you're trapped by yourself with nowhere to go, instantly the joy you get when looking forward to something disappears because there's nothing to do. And when this is the case, your life quickly becomes so vapid, which I'll go into how I counted this later. But to finally go back to the statistic, this leaves the average human being with too much time by themselves, which gives them this giant void that they have to fill up. But the way most people fill this void is by filling it with meaningless pleasures. Now, I can make an entire video on why pleasure is bad, but there are many people I know who have gone down this path. And oh boy, are they the opposite of happy. Now, with how I governed my life, I made sure to avoid this fret as much as possible. But in its place came something more menacing. The more time I spent all by myself, the more I started to get agitated. The reason this agitation boiled up was because there was a lot of people my age who are experiencing a magnificent life. They're going outside, going overseas, and they're enjoying all these different types of things. But I was constantly stuck in my room every day. Now, spending 3 months in the same place isn't that bad, but when you're stuck for almost an entire year, it builds so much agitation. And with me, that agitation was building itself a skyscraper. But the thing about this agitation is that, in my experience, it was like an endless loop, right? I'll get mad about the fact I'm stuck in my room, and then I'll get agitated. And it'll remind me that I'll get mad about the fact I'm stuck in my room. Then I'll get agitated. That'll remind. Now, of all these problems stacked against me, in a life where I can't escape my room, it certainly looks hopeless, right? As I haven't even made it out yet. But I'm not backing down. You see, every time I got more agitated, the more I wanted to go outside, the more I wanted to counter this problem. But the special thing about this is that this agitation became an advantage. I started to spend hours working, learning, making sure I use my time wisely. If you're going through the same problem as I am, I'm going to give you a helping hand. This is how I'm surviving being isolated for over 10 months. The first thing we need to make clear is a trap I see a lot of people do. You see, the reason why I made this video is not to complain. Let me tell you, when I became isolated, there are many ways I could have reacted. I could have used different excuses to waste time, but something far worse than that is something I see so often. You see, whatever you do, never label yourself as a victim. What I mean by this is that I know people who, when they're in a bad spot in life, instead of taking direct responsibility, they blame something else and call themselves the victim. This is one of the worst ways you could go about this, because being a victim is a strong excuse to not do anything. So whatever you do, avoid this at all costs. Now that we've clarified that we're not victims, with one of the side effects I experienced, we could actually use that towards our advantage. Let's say you're doing work and you just feel casual, you feel fine. You'll probably get some decent work done, right? But if you were as agitated as I was, your workflow would go through the roof. This is because anger is one of the best motivators ever. Now, this leads us into the most important part of the puzzle. Whatever you do, never waste your time, okay? You have so much time to spend when you're this isolated that you can just put it all towards your work. Keep never quitting.